Hello and welcome back to another episode of Math with Stone. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of how to find the centroid of a graph the correct way. We've already gone through and we've already done it the incorrect, well, not necessarily the incorrect way, but the quick way. But what happens if this point is a decimal, or what happens if you need to be more precise, okay? So in order to do that, it will take some time. You are going to have to first find the midpoint like we already did, and the midpoint like we already did, but we need to get the equations of both of these lines. So the way you get equations of lines is you need your slope and you need a point, okay? And then you can plug it into y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. You can plug it into that formula, the point slope formula, to be able to get your equation. So we're going to start with this point right here. We're going to figure out what is the slope of this line from -3 up. We went up by 1, 2, 3, and over by 1, 2, 3. So that means the slope of this line would equal 1. All right. And then the point that you can use either use the point -3, 0, or you could use the point 3, 0. I'm going to use the point 3, 0. So with that being said, if that is the case, we are going to plug that into the point slope formula. Because it's the y-intercept, you could technically plug it into y equals mx plus b. But in case you forget, you get y minus, that's not 3, 0, it's 0, 3. Oh my gosh, 0, 3. So y minus 3 would equal 1, x minus 0. If you distribute the 1, you get y minus 3 equals 1x minus 0. Add 3 over, you get y equals 1x plus 3. So that is the equation of the line right here. All right. What if you need two equations? Well, now we do. We actually do need the equation of this line right here. And if that is the case, you need to, again, find your slope of that equation and use a point. Well, it's definitely going to be this point right here, -6, 0. I'm going to use that point. So how much did we go up by? We went up by 1.5. And that's okay to go up by 1.5. So we went up by 1.5, and we went over by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we went up by 1.5 and over by 6, which is a nasty number. What is 1.5 divided by 6? Let's see. 1.5 divided by 6 is 0.25. Okay, that is your m. You can write your slope as a fraction, but you can also write your slope as a decimal, everybody. Okay, so that's our slope, and there's our point. Let's plug it into the point slope formula. Y minus y1, which is 0, equals 0.25 x plus 6, because we got to change the sign, minus -6. Distribute the 0.25, you get y equals 0.25 x plus 0.25 times 6 is 1.5. All right, which looks like the y-intercept to me. Remember, we already knew the y-intercept was 1.5, so there's our second equation. All right. Once you get both equations, then you're still not done. This is by far the longer of the two methods. You have to set those equal to each other. So once you get both equations of two of the lines that are going through the middle and or the centroid, you set them equal to each other. 1x plus 3 will equal 0.25x plus 1.5. I am going to subtract the 0.25x minus 0.25x, we get 0.75x plus 3 is equal to 1.5. Subtract 3 from both sides, you get 0.75x is equal to -1.5, which means x is equal to -2. Woo! We are almost done, and we're still not done. Once you get the x value, in order to be certain that you have it correct, you need to get the y value. So you have these two boxed equations. Once you get the x value, you have to plug it into one of them, either one, to get the y value. I'm going to plug it into this one right here. Y would equal 1 times -2 plus 3, which means y would equal -2 plus 3, which is 1. All right. Well, is this value of the centroid at -2, 1? Yes, it is. So that is how you find the centroid algebraically. It is way longer than just graphing it and going shrink, shrink, there it is. Schwink, schwink, there it is. But it will help if your answer is a decimal. If your answer is a decimal, this method's already annoying with the equations. It gets even worse. It is also the method that you would have to do if you have 3 coordinate points, because maybe those 3 coordinate points, you don't want to mess around with graph paper. Okay? So if you have 3 coordinate points, what you need to do is maybe do a rough sketch of what's happening to get an idea. So I'm going to do number 9. We got 0, 0, that's A. We got negative 8, 0, that's B. Negative 8, 0, that's B. And then we have negative 7, negative 6, that's C. So here is our rough graph of this problem right here. All right? Now the purpose of that is just so we kind of know what's going on. Because graphing this and doing the find the middle and finding the centroid, it's going to be somewhere in there where you go and you go from the middle and then you kind of go to the other side and you go from the middle and you go to the other side. Actually, it'd be more like that. So how do we do this? Well, we need to first figure out what is the midpoint of these sides. Well, I'm going to start with what is the midpoint of the side A to B. The midpoint of A to B would be what is perfectly in the middle from 0, 0 to negative 8, 0, and you can use the midpoint formula if you want to, but you get negative 4, 0. All right, you're going to use the midpoint formula if you don't remember it. It is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, so that would be how you would do it, and you could still get negative 4, 0. So the midpoint of AB is negative 4, 0. Now I'm labeling this because it's going to get messy very quickly. So the midpoint of those two is negative 4, 0. We need to find the midpoint of another side. Well, I'm going to pick the midpoint of something that seems like it's going to be a little bit easier to do, which would be A to C, because it already had 0, 0. Now for this one, I am going to use the midpoint formula. For A to C, I would have to add up 0 and negative 7 and divide by 2. And then I would have to add up 0 and negative 6 and divide by 2, which gets me to negative 7 divided by 2, which is negative 3.5, and negative 6 divided by 2, which is negative 3. So that is the midpoint of A to C, is negative 3.5, comma 3. Now we needed those points because after you get those points, we need to get the equations of the lines. In order to get the equations of lines that go through those points, well, we're looking for a point that goes from the middle to point C and from the midpoint of AC to point B. So that's what we need to use. We need to find what is the slope of the midpoint to point C. So that's why the graph kind of helps. So we need to find the midpoint from this midpoint to point C, which is the only letter not drawn. So what is the slope from this midpoint to point C? Well, how much did we go down and how much did we go over? You could use your slope formula, y2 minus y1, but we went down by 6 and we went to the left by 2, but we could also think of it from point C. From point C, we went up by 6 and we went over by 3. Okay, so we went up by 6, over by 3. I think I said 2 the first time. Up by 6, over by 3. So if we went up by 6 and over by 3 from point C to the midpoint of AB, that means that the slope from C to AB is equal to 6 over 3, better known as 2. All right, well, what is the slope from the midpoint of AC to point B? From the midpoint of AC to point B, I am going to use the slope formula because we got decimals. This guy right here. So midpoint of AC, we got y2 minus y1. I'm going to do 3 minus point B is 0 over x2, which would be negative 3.5, minus negative 8, which should turn into a plus 8. So we end up with 3 over, what is 8 minus 3.5? We end up with 4.5. 3 over 4.5, which I'm going to write as a decimal of, Actually, I'm just going to write it as the decimal of 0.6 repeat, because that is what it is. It's 2 over 3. All right. So that is the slope of AC to B. Okay? It is here to here. And it is also supposed to be negative. What happened there? What did I mess up? Negative 3.5 minus 8. I made a mistake somewhere. Where'd it go? We got y2 minus y1 is 3 minus 0. Oh, it's the fact that I forgot a negative. There's the negative. There's the negative. There's the negative. There's the negative. There we go. Negative 0.6. Now we get the fun part. We have these two slopes. We have the points that we can use. We can either use the midpoints or we can use these points, but we got to be careful. If we're trying to find the equation of a line, we need to use the slope from C to AB. So I'm going to use point C because point C is a whole number, or I could use AB, which is also a whole number. So I'm going to find the equation here. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. For both of these, y minus y1, I'm going to use point C. Point C would be y plus 6 minus the negative 6 equals, the slope is 2, x, change the sign, plus 7. Distribute the 2, y plus 6 equals 2x plus 14. Y would equal 2x plus 8. One equation. Next equation, we got from AC to point B. Well, the midpoint of AC is a decimal, so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use point B. Point B is negative 8 comma 0. So y minus 0 equals negative 0.6 repeat. X minus negative 8 turns into a plus 8. 8 times 0.6 repeat ends up being 5.3 repeat, negative 5.3 repeat. Y would equal negative 0.6 repeat minus 5.3 repeat. Okay? Now that we have both of the equations, we need to set them equal to each other. So we have this equation, we have this equation, we need to set them equal to each other. We got 2x plus 8 equals negative 0.6 repeat x minus 5.3 repeat. Let's solve the equation. We got to add the 0.6 over. Add the 0.6 repeat x over. You get 2.6 repeat x plus 8 is equal to negative 5.3 repeat. Subtract the 8 over. 2.6 repeat x equals negative 13.3 repeat. Divide by 2.6 repeat. And you get x is equal to 5. Whew! Might have been easier just to graph this thing. So x is equal to 5. The last step after you get x is always find the y value, plug that x value back in. Y would equal 2 times 5 plus 8, which means that y would equal 18. All right, so this is not an easy lesson, guys. Stay positive. You will get there. I recommend looking at part 1 to do the easy way, which will work the majority of the time and save yourself a bunch of heartache, potentially. I'll see you then. Bye.